what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron Uncensored podcast. Like we talked about at the end of the last one, we are shifting out of the 2023 season. It's done. It doesn't matter, though some people try and make it matter when it comes to preseason rankings. Let me tell you, it doesn't, okay? We're talking 2024 now, and we're getting into scheduling. And this is a question from one of our listeners, Barbara. She asked, who's got the toughest schedule? Who's got the toughest three-game stretch? We'll talk about that later. But God, dude, when you talk about toughest schedules, man, there are some rough ones out there. And it's going to tell us, who's making the playoffs. It's going to tell us who might get fired. It's got a lot. So that's what we're digging into at first. Let's talk scheduling. Trevor, who's got the hardest damn schedule? Because I think most college football fans know.
Most people that are in the know that have actually paid attention to when the schedules came out, everything like that, pretty much knows where this is all going. It is number one. They're number one in one category and one category alone, and that is not one they want to be in, and that is the toughest schedule, and that is the Florida State Gators. And I'll tell you what, it's bad for them, folks. I ain't gonna lie to you. If anyone hasn't had a chance to look at their schedule, why don't you go take a look at it? I'm just gonna go ahead and read off the last 5 games of their schedule. November 2nd at Georgia, November 9th at Texas, November 16th November 16th is at home against LSU. November 23rd is at home against Ole Miss, and they round out the season at the last game of the season, of course. November 30th at Florida State. Guys, I don't know about you, but Florida has no hope. There is zero hope for Florida. I apologize for Florida fans. I really wish it was anything other than what the SEC screwed you guys over a bit. But it's brutal. However, silver lining, the one thing I will say is that if you manage Florida to kind of go unscathed up to this 5-game stretch and manage to probably win 3 out of those 5 games, you're in the playoff 100%.
Jeez. Yeah,
100%.
I mean, if they find a way.
Here's my thing, though, is that I think Florida State's in flux. I think LSU isn't predictable, especially now no longer having their quarterback. And Ole Miss, again, assuming they hold the same trend that they had last year where they were kind of a little unpredictable as well, I think there's an avenue where maybe if Florida's playing good, solid, fundamental ball, that they may be able – I'll say 2 wins. If you can get 2 wins out of this 5-game stretch and go into this 5-game stretch undefeated, you're in the playoff. That is the only thing I can say about that.
Yeah, I mean, if they win 10 games, I don't see how they don't make it with that schedule.
Yeah, they have to. It would be a travesty once again for another Florida team if they got left out because of that.
By God, man, I don't know. I look at this. You're starting with Miami.
Mm-hmm. That's the biggest hurdle. That's the biggest hurdle is just trying to get off to a good start against that Miami team.
They got a new
I'm very high on
team. Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, they've got Tennessee.
Yeah.
Kentucky is, they're a gritty team. I put it on Twitter and I said, if they win 6 games, I'm going to eat a freaking lemon. Like I'll eat a whole, I'm talking rind and all, man. Because
God. Now you're making me want to root for Florida.
Hey, I want you guys to root for Florida because I'm going to bask in the glory when they fire Billy Napier going into freaking the Kentucky game because they're going to lose to Miami, Texas A&M, and probably Tennessee to start off. And then by the time you get around to Georgia, they're cooked. I just don't see it, man.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you go Miami, Samford, and then Texas A&M right out the gate. I mean, Texas A&M ain't no slouch. They know how to get talent in the offseason. They just don't necessarily know how to put it all together.
And they, with new coaching staff too, with Elko.
Yeah, Elko, you don't really know what you're gonna get.
Yeah,
it could be another. Not to compare the two, because Texas A&M, please don't take this as an insult, but it could be another kind of like Deion Sanders situation where you're going in not having a flipping clue
Yeah.
how they're going to play with the talent that they have, and
Yeah.
how every team, when you do a transition, you go through this the transition period where you're not really sure what you're going to get on the field.
Yeah. It's
Also,
interesting. I feel like a lot of teams are that way though this year. New
yeah,
quarterbacks, new coaches.
yep.
It's
There's a
like you
lot
said,
of turnover this
LSU.
year. There was a lot of
They're
turnover
another one.
this year.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. But when you look at that schedule, immediately it's just brutal. That's the only word that comes to mind is absolute brutality. Um, well, so we know now that Florida is the toughest. They have the toughest schedule in 2024, and it'll be interesting to see how these teams shake out. This is all preseason talk. Uh, Trevor, let's talk more about some of the other hard schedules out there
Sure.
because I've got a long list of teams. I know you've got some.
Yeah,
Let's set them
I
up.
got a few that I was going to point out.
Yeah.
Well, you say we just kind of go, well, since we started with Florida at the top, then you just want to kind of go top down?
Yeah, who do you have at number 2? Another
I
tough
have at
schedule.
number 2. It's actually surprised me a little bit because I was actually going to move away from them, but it ended up being Oklahoma actually.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm with you.
and I picked Oklahoma not just because of the final 3 games of their season, but the way the whole season kind of lays out that they have to go at Auburn, which don't get me wrong, I think they can win that, but at Auburn, I don't care who you are, that's a tough place to play.
Yeah.
Now here's where I want to see the old Oklahoma just leave no doubt. These first 3 games against Temple, Houston, and Tulane. I think there is an easy point to be made where one of these 3 teams are going to make Oklahoma stumble.
Yeah.
Tulane's a good team, solid team. Houston, we don't know what Houston's going to be because they have had a ton of turnover on the coaching staff and players alike. So, and then Tennessee. Tennessee's you're going to be breaking in a new quarterback, kind of new quarterback. He's known that more than likely the guy's going to be the starter, but we haven't seen him in a pressure cooker situation like a Tennessee versus Oklahoma.
Right.
So, and then the rest of so just to give the listeners, if you haven't seen the Oklahoma schedule, it does shake out this way. It goes Temple, Houston, Tulane for the start of the season at the non-con schedule. Then it goes Tennessee at Auburn, Texas in Dallas for the Red River rivalry. That's always a fun one.
Yeah.
Then they follow that up with South Carolina at Ole Miss, Maine, random. And then at Missouri, and then at home to Alabama, and then back out to LSU at the Bayou in the Bayou. And
yeah,
that just ending your season with those 3 teams is dangerous if you do not go unscathed the rest of your conference or the rest of the schedule.
Yeah.
So they got a tough road this year, especially being in the SEC for the first time. They've got a rough one for the first year.
I'm absolutely with you. I've got Oklahoma at number 2 for my list. Like you said, Tulane's a sneaky game right there. I think they if they had Pratt last year, I think they would have taken out Ole Miss personally. So you need to watch out for them, and especially with it being right before Tennessee.
Yeah,
you can get a huge look ahead moment.
Yep, trap game
watch
for
out.
sure.
Yes, sir. Watch out. And then you've got Texas, like you said, in the Cotton Bowl. Ole Miss game's tough. You basically get a third bye week playing Maine before you go into Missouri. So it's going to be a really tough slate for them. You finish off with Alabama and then LSU. It is not going to be easy for Oklahoma trying to finish this season out, especially first year in the SEC. I don't like it for them. I don't have much hope for them either. Now, they're a talented team. I like Venables. I think he's a good coach. But truly, it is not going to be easy moving forward for the Oklahoma Sooners.
Yep.
And then now let's talk about the third team. Who do you have on third? Because
Third team's
we
kind of
might be slicing it here. I don't know.
the third team is a little different because I did kind of a 3A 3B situation because they're both bad, but the team that I went with for my 3A, I guess you could say, ended up being UCLA.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, UCLA does not start out the season too fun. So their toughest stretch is actually at the beginning of the season, which is probably the worst situation for a team in as much turmoil as UCLA is in. Yeah. So they, no big deal. They start out the season at Hawaii. Cool little vacation for the Bruins. They stay out west. Then they come play Indiana. Could be a tough game. And it could be a tough game mainly because, one, it's a conference game the second week of the season. And on top of that, it predates the stretch that sucks the most for these guys. And that is, it goes Indiana. Then they have to turn around and go down to the Bayou and play LSU. Then they come back, they go back out west and play Oregon. And then they come all the way back to Pennsylvania to play Penn State. So they're getting some frequent flyer miles at the beginning of the season for sure.
Yeah.
So that's why I picked them. I just picked them because it's the one, they're new to coming out and playing so often out here to the east side of the country, and having them travel as much as they're doing. It'll be interesting to see how the players handle it.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. I've got them a little bit lower on the list. They're my seventh team, and it's just simply because I don't know what Washington and USC are going to be. But when you look at the full scale, it's a tough schedule. It doesn't even matter if they're top 25 teams. I mean, going to Washington isn't easy, and then playing USC, and then you finish with Fresno State, which don't overlook them either. They're not a bad team at all. But yeah, that stretch at LSU, Oregon, and Penn State, that is one of the toughest in the country.
Yeah.
I mean,
especially with the travel, it's not just the teams that they have to play, but the travel in which that they're going to. Because I mean, for those of you that aren't familiar, these guys are basically stopping practice a few days early when they're traveling this far to make sure the players aren't jet lagged when they show up to the stadium.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, man.
It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
So who's your next? You said at 3A, 3B.
Yeah, my 3B is, surprisingly for even me, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And they got it pretty rough, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. They have a 4-game stretch that I pointed out I wrote down in my notes as something that should be noted, and that is on October 5th, Ole Miss, October 12th at Bama, October 19th at OU, and then on November 2nd they have Texas A&M to round out that 4-game stretch.
Yeah.
And once again, that is one of the toughest in the country right there to try and navigate as a South Carolina team that just lost their 5th year, the Spencer Rattler, who's been, he was a really good player, but as we noted in our 2023 coverage is that South Carolina had a little bit of O-line problems. Yes, and if you didn't know that, you were under a rock during the entire college football season. So welcome.
Yeah.
So that's who I had as my basically 3A, 3B is UCLA and South Carolina for those particular reasons.
Yeah, I've got mine's just a tad different. I've got Arkansas up there.
They were definitely in the mix. I ain't gonna lie to you. They got a tough one too.
Yeah, I got Arky at 3 because they play Oklahoma State early. They play Auburn, Texas A&M, Tennessee, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, and Mizzou. I mean, just a tough schedule for an Arkansas team that's, again, in trouble, man.
Yep.
I fear for that team. And then I've got South Carolina too, because that is an
Yep.
absolutely brutal schedule with
Yeah.
Clemson.
And I didn't mention that the way they have to end their season is at
Yeah.
Clemson. Oh Lord.
Yeah. I don't. Oh man, that Ole Miss, Bama, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Mizzou, Clemson. That's a brutal schedule
I
too.
wrote down Texas A&M, but every time I write down Texas A&M as a tough game, they
Yeah,
usually prove me wrong.
I know. I know. It's like I look at these teams and I look, obviously the name, the stadium that they're playing.
Mhm.
Um, but also, yeah, they're unknowns, but it
Yeah.
could be really tough depending
100%.
on situation. So it's like,
Yep.
okay, that's why they're trailing back into now we're talking the fourth hardest team. But these are still insanely tough schedules.
Yeah.
So don't get it twisted. I've got Georgia Tech up here as well.
Yeah.
If you
They
look
were
at
on
their
my
schedule,
radar.
they
Yeah,
are tough, especially how they finish. Miami, NC State, at Georgia. Oh, and let's not forget Notre Dame's in there, Louisville's in there, and then Virginia Tech, which has a lot of potential this year. So I look for Georgia Tech. They've got a tough one, man.
Yeah, and Virginia Tech is a sneaky one because when you go to Virginia Tech, it is a different animal than when Virginia Tech comes into your house and plays.
Yeah.
It's only almost like two different teams or you're playing, depending on if you're playing them in Virginia Tech.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, they're one that we lacked consistency last year. I want to see if they can get that consistency because they could be a problem in the ACC, in my opinion. But again, we're going to look all into the rosters and all that stuff as we move forward.
Yep.
So, Trevor, you got any more, or do you want me to run down this list that I got?
You go ahead and run down your list, and I'll throw in my tidbits because I mean I have a list of like potentials, but I only did the basically top 4 teams that really had the toughest schedules, and then I obviously have a bunch written down for toughest 3-game stretch.
Yeah, all right, I feel you. I've got Mississippi State's next on my list. They've got Texas, Georgia, Texas A&M in the middle, but they finish the 3-game stretch of Tennessee, Mizzou, and Ole Miss to finish out. That's not easy. And like you said, Texas A&M, I don't really have them written down as like, a tough game like Ole Miss, Missouri, but they're still a danger team. So that's why I've got Mississippi State up there at my 6th team. This is where I've got UCLA at 7. You talked about them.
Yep.
I think they probably could be top, like you said, where you're at. I just was like Washington, USC. I don't know. So what do you think at Mississippi State? Anything on that? Or I know you already talked about UCLA.
I'll tell you what. I already talked about. Yeah, I talked about them. But I mean, when I was looking at their schedule, they've got. I mean, if Florida is even a 50% improvement over last year, they've got a really, really tough 3-game stretch starting with Florida at home. They get them at home, but then they go on the road at Texas and Georgia, and then they come back. They go back to Texas A&M, which is I'm assuming no slouch, but they love to prove me wrong.
You never know.
they love to like shove. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Mississippi State's got a tough road ahead of them, and don't look past them having to start out the year at Arizona State because they could have problems with them too. Because Mississippi State did have a lot of different issues last year with on both sides of the ball, really.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how they navigate this, and it's going to be a great season. I'm really excited about it. But SEC teams definitely have it rough this year with the with both Texas and OU joining. It's just throwing a monkey wrench into the schedules and making every schedule that much more difficult.
Yeah, the way whoever did the SEC scheduling, I don't know. I mean, it's brutal how they laid it out.
It's brutal for just about everybody.
Because next team on my list at number 8, I've got Vanderbilt.
Oh yeah, Vandy's. Oh my God.
Dude, they could honestly probably be a little bit higher, but they open up with Virginia Tech. They play Missouri, Alabama. Depends on how you view Kentucky, but they're not a bad team. They're definitely going to challenge you.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, if the Ball State wasn't there, they'd be probably if Ball State was in a different location on their schedule,
Yeah.
that they would be in the running for the toughest 3 to 4 game stretch in all of college football with Missouri, Alabama, Kentucky, and Texas. Because I do
Yeah.
think Kentucky, when they're at home, plays just as tough as any other football program in the country.
Yeah. And with Stoops staying, and
Yep.
they've got some good recruits in,
Yep.
working the transfer portal. They got a quarterback came in from Georgia.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, it can't be worse than Leary, right? So because Devin Leary was fucking horrible last year.
He was pretty
Like,
brutal. He
holy.
was pretty brutal.
So yeah, Vanderbilt's there at my number 8, and then I go back into the Big Ten. I've got USC, and again, it's kind of because of some unknowns, but you've got LSU early, and I feel like USC could even be higher up. You've got Michigan early, Wisconsin, and then Penn State, and then you have Washington later. Or Rutgers is a good team. I
I'm
think they're
telling
going to
you,
be
Rutgers.
dangerous.
Everyone is sleeping on Rutgers. I'm telling you, they are going to
Yes.
be better than what people think they are.
I agree. I full-heartedly agree with you. And then you've got who knows what Nebraska is going to be this year. You've got UCLA, which they're probably going to be a little rough first year head coach.
For UCLA, by the time they get to that point,
Yeah.
they may just be down and out.
They're going to be in a body bag. And then you finish out for USC with Notre Dame to finish the season. So that's another tough schedule, man. I don't know how they're going to make it through it, and because they've had a lot of turnover as well.
Yes, they have. They have. I still am holding true to my thought process that I do not think Lincoln Riley will. More than likely, he may survive this season, but I don't think he'll survive the next.
Yeah,
I don't think his style of offense is going to survive in the Big Ten. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm
unless
really
he changes
to see that.
Unless he changes some thought process on the way he runs it. But the run and gun stuff in November when it's 25 degrees and you're playing. Let's see, you're playing Nebraska in November or Notre Dame. Oh, Notre Dame is at home and Nebraska's at home. Well, they got lucky on that one.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, maybe out in Washington, the cold weather is going to get them one of these times. And
bro, I'm looking at it right now. Their November is so easy when it comes to travel.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in LA.
Yeah, it's out west, or it's all out west for the last 4 games of the season, really.
Man,
if you want to think about it, because they got to play at Washington, then they get home, Nebraska, then they go to LA, which is a hop, skip, and a jump from where they're at, and then they are at home against Notre Dame.
Yeah,
that's about as easy of a back end stretch of a schedule. Not the teams necessarily, but for travel purposes, like you said.
Right.
It's probably one of the easier ones in the country right now.
Yeah, for absolutely when it comes to the traveling. Next up, I threw Michigan in at the 10 team.
Okay.
They're playing 3 top 10 teams. Right off, and that's just off the top. Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. That's already brutal. And then you add in a solid Fresno State team. We don't know what Michigan State's going to be with their new coaching staff.
I would venture to guess they're going to be better because they're going to have a much better quarterback. They upgraded significantly at the quarterback position.
I agree. And then it's kind of that random, like, okay, again, is Washington, what are they going to be? What is Washington with Jedd Fisch? And then USC, are they going to do better? I know they lost players in the offseason, but they did bring in a better defensive coordinator from UCLA. Yeah. So it's one of those, if they all panned out, USC, Washington, you're looking at one of the toughest schedules in the country.
This could end up being a very tough schedule. And look, the way the stretch that is Michigan State, Oregon, and at Indiana, I know it doesn't on the surface doesn't sound that bad, but if Michigan State plays to, we'll just say the potential of, say, the way Oregon State played last year with that grit and that determination and that just never die attitude, you have the Michigan State Spartans playing you tough as a rivalry game. Then you got to turn around and play probably one of the best college football teams in the country in Oregon. And whether I'll argue with anybody all day long about Oregon, because right now going into the season, I have them at probably the number 2 or number 3 best team in the country. Easy.
Yeah.
Because they basically didn't lose a ton. They lost Bo Nix, but they gained, I don't know, 2 of the best quarterbacks that you could get out of the portal.
Yeah.
Or in my opinion, with Dylan Gabriel and then also the Dante Moore from UCLA, the freshman. So Oregon is looking like a monster, but I mean, there is no other monster like Ohio State right now.
Yeah. And again, to finish the season, at least you've got a bye week, but Northwestern, they were on the uptrend. They're another one. Watch out for Northwestern. It's going to be tough. Michigan's breaking in a new quarterback, new offensive line. That defense is going to be the linchpin for them, though, because it is a damn good defense. They just got back, safety in Johnson, who's decided to come back, which is huge after losing Keon Sabb. So that defense is going to be key for this Michigan team going forward. And it just depends on quarterback play. What's going to happen? So I don't know, man. That's where I've got rounded out my top 10 though with Michigan. And now I've got a bunch that are just outside. I won't break down all of them, but just a list of teams that all have tough schedules. Georgia's got tough. Wisconsin, Alabama, Texas has tough schedule. Tennessee, Auburn, Texas A&M. Look at that. All these SEC teams again. Michigan State.
Michigan State's got a tough one. They do got a tough one. If they can manage it, and get through it, they'll be looking pretty good.
Yeah, and Clemson's another one that I think you probably could put them, close to that top 10 range. They've got a tough schedule, playing Georgia, and then you got West Virginia's got a pretty tough one, and then Colorado. This is, I said I wasn't going to break them down, but when you look at Colorado's schedule, the Prime is talking, hey, we're going to the playoffs. We're buddy. I'm looking at it, and you got Kansas State, Arizona, Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. That's probably 5 losses right there. I don't know. I don't know. It's just
I've never really wanted Colorado to lose, but I'm just over the talk. I'm over the talk. You could talk all day long, but yet you have yet to be able to back it up on the field.
I know. And that's where I'm like, I like Colorado as a team. I just, I want just shut up and get to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Win games and people will stop talking about you in a negative way.
Yeah. And my last team that I looked at their schedules. Oh, that's a pretty tough one. Is Arizona State, Wyoming, early. That's always tough. Mississippi State, again, random, but it's an SEC team. Texas State, which is a danger team in the group of 5. Watch out for them. And then you got Kansas, Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Arizona to finish off. That's tough for old Arizona State, man.
That is a bit tough. I was just thinking about this when we were talking about our next topic. I was like, I have a hard time picking who I would actually pick for. Well, I know who I'd pick for the number 1 worst three stretch in the country. But outside of that, I don't think you can go outside of those top 10 that you listed off there for 3-game stretches. Because looking at some of those other schedules, it's just spaced out in between kind of. Yeah, it's spaced out a little nicer than some of the top 10 schedules.
Yeah, I hear you. I've got a list of 11 teams that have a tough 3-game stretch, but I think
I've got
who's going to be number 1, 2. Trevor, what's yours, man?
Well, honestly, I mean, look, I already kind of said it at the top of this episode, and it's not going to change much. I already rattled off the last 5 games that they have to end their season, and it's not going to change for this particular question. And who has the most difficult 3-game stretch in 2024? It is the one and only Florida Gators, with Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. to end their season. Just saying that out loud without even putting any context to it is insanity.
That's an NCAA 14 schedule right there. Like when
Oh my
when you're
God.
roster building, when you're already a juggernaut, you're like, oh yeah, give me every top team. I'm gonna knock them out of the way early, or
Yep.
whenever on the schedule. That's what they've got. And trust me, they're not a juggernaut. So I've got a lemon riding on this shit. All right. I feel bad for Graham Mertz but I'm rooting for him to lose because I mean I'll eat a lemon, I guess, but I don't want to, man. I don't want to do it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was looking at the line on this early line, and I'll tell you what, for them to make the playoff, I think is you bet $5 and you can make like $500.
Dude, I can't even imagine what like the betting odds on that. I mean, it's probably good money. Hey, if it happens, it happens. If not, it's what,
unfortunately, I live in a state that doesn't allow that sort of thing, so whatever.
Yeah, good old Alabama, baby. Hey, we'll see what happens. Go across the state line. That's what most of the people do there. That's what we used to have to do back even to buy cigars or whatever. Go up to Tennessee, and but everybody knows about that. I'll go up to Old Ardmore. So Trevor, what else you got? I know Florida's obviously
Florida's there. What else did I have? I had I want to say Oklahoma for 2, but honestly, judging with all the dynamics that are switching around for them, I honestly want to put number 2 for UCLA having the hardest 3-game stretch.
Yeah.
Also, the added factor of it being towards the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Is why I had it there.
Perception and attitude going the rest of the way.
Yeah. It kind of sets the whole tone. And then the third one, I think, is probably going to end up being Oklahoma for me.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, again, kind of going off of what the kind of season they had last year, I think I'll switch that up. I had them at 4, but I think I'm going to put them at 3. And that's South Carolina with Ole Miss at Bama and then at OU.
Yeah.
Not knowing kind of how at least I know Alabama's going to show out. I mean, they've got athletes all over the place, and OU does too. It's just not knowing the quarterback situation necessarily for OU, and how that's going to come out on the field. But just having to be at Bryant-Denny and then at OU during that 3-game stretch in October is going to be one of those things where I think that puts them above Oklahoma for me.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I definitely can see that for sure. When I'm looking at the Oklahoma schedule, that Mizzou again, I know they lost their defensive coordinator to LSU. Which is savage. But I've got not necessarily in any order, but just looking at them, UCLA, that LSU, Oregon, Penn State, like we beat the dead horse, but good Lord. I mean,
I know
that's tough, man. Oklahoma, I've got them up there. South Carolina, Florida, obviously is in that 1-2. It's probably number 1, and it's number 1, and then UCLA number 2. My kind of outlier type one is Michigan State. I mentioned them in other tough schedules. The rest of it it's not necessarily horrible how it shakes out. They've got Florida Atlantic early, Maryland, Prairie View, A&M, Boston College. But this stretch right here, Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, Michigan. That is a tough stretch.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. I missed that one.
Brutal.
I forgot about them.
New team. Oh, man. And then you got Indiana on the back end, which, like you said, who knows? Indiana is one of those teams. And then you finish out with Rutgers, which
we both of us are kind of pretty much high on Rutgers right now. It's kind of maybe potentially being a dark horse for the Big Ten. I mean, with all the changing in the Big Ten, it's so hard to pick an existing Big Ten team to be a dark horse. But if I was to pick one right now, I would probably have to pick Rutgers just because I like what they're doing.
I like what they're doing as well. But that's tough 3-game stretches. So Barbara, again, thank you for the questions. Because that's just great going in and getting those dives on it early. And Man, I'm ready
Absolutely.
for 2024, dude. I'm excited to see what the hell happens.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's going to be a fun time diving into each one of these teams and kind of giving you guys the 411 on what's going on.
Absolutely. Trevor, do you have anything else on these topics? I've got a couple of group of 5 things I figure I'd throw in for schedule.
No, not really, not really. I just my condolences, Florida Gator fans. My
Yeah.
condolences.
They're already packing up the casket and getting you ready, getting the body bag out.
Just enjoy the tailgating. Just enjoy the tailgating.
Yeah, honestly, win or lose, you booze, and
That's right. Win or lose, you booze. Oh, that's a headline. I like it.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough for them. Lemon. That's all I'm gonna say. Lemon. All right, I'm gonna hit you up with a couple of group of 5 teams that have tough schedules and some stretches as well. But I'll just kind of give you the stretch that I'm talking about. USF is one of the first ones that I wrote down, and I just worked my way down from conferences. This isn't in any order, but they play Bama, Miami, and Tulane early. I think that's tough for UCF or USF, excuse me. USF, a little bit worried about them, but if they make it through that, hey, could be a danger team out there. Tulane, Kansas State, Oklahoma early, and because they're back to back. I know it's not like a full schedule, but this is a Tulane team that is looking for that group of 5 slot in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, that's if you can even knock off Oklahoma and you lose to Kansas State, you're looking at a really good shot at trying to make a playoff run. So I don't know. Keep an eye out for old Tulane, man. By the way, they have great helmets. If you don't know, beautiful helmets. Definitely a
Green Wave.
Yes, NCAA college football 25 uniform that you want to play with. Arkansas State. They got Michigan and Iowa State back to back. I know it's Iowa State, but still kind of tough road there. And then Texas State, again, a team we've mentioned as a team that you need to watch out for. They've got good quarterback coming in from JMU. They've got a good coaching staff. They upset Baylor last year. Watch Arkansas State. I'm sorry, you guys are screwed probably. Kent State, you got Pitt, Tennessee, Penn State in the first 5 weeks. Your season's toast off the bat, even though I like their uniforms too. Kent State.
I do like Kent State's. I actually do like Kent. I like, honestly, most of the MAC. I actually like all of the MAC uniforms mostly. Except for Easterns. That one's just a little bit too bleh to me.
Yeah, I agree. I know people like salivate over that gray field and stuff, but I'm just kind of like, sorry, Eastern. I'm not a fan.
You missed the mark on that one.
Yeah, but Kent State, they updated their unis. They look slick, man. Same with Toledo. I wrote down Akron as well. In the first 4 weeks, they play Oklahoma or Ohio State, Rutgers, and South Carolina. That's a tough match for Akron. And then conference play. UNLV, their 6 of their first 8 games. You've got Houston, Kansas, Fresno State, Syracuse, Oregon State, and Boise. And Boise's going to be a pretty solid team. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel bad for them, man. I know it's
what is with the scheduling this year, man. It's brutal.
I know. And I know, again, it's UNLV. I know we put Houston in there, Syracuse, but still that's a tough schedule for them.
That is a tough schedule. That's a very tough schedule.
Oh my God, dog, bro. And then New Mexico, Arizona, Auburn, and Fresno State. Tough little stretch there. So that's some group of 5 talk for you. That's what I looked at when I went through all the schedules for them. And I was like, yeah, those teams, they've got a pretty tough road going ahead into 2024 season. But yeah, I think that's most of what we were talking about on this one. Trevor, you got anything else?
I don't.
Future plans. We obviously just covered the toughest schedules. Next, we're going to talk about, on the next episode, the easiest schedules. Maybe who's got the easiest road to the playoffs going into 2024. Yep. And it'll take some deep diving, but it should be pretty easy to find
who's playing the cupcakes. Easy to locate.
Who's playing the cupcakes, baby. So yeah, that's what we're looking for moving forward. We'll get this out to you guys and let us know your thoughts. Who are the toughest schedules? If you got something different than us, please let us know, because I don't think you do.
I would be very shocked to hear someone say anyone other than Florida Gators have the roughest road.
And seriously, if you do, tag us because I want to call you out on it.
I will gladly enter that conversation.
Like that's a hill I will die on.
And you can follow us at Trevor GP, and Brendan handles the main page at Kicking It with the Grid.
Yeah.
Like, follow, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. That's where we do most of our conversating with everyone from college football fandom world.
Exactly.
And we truly appreciate everybody that does listen. Whether you're on Spotify or on YouTube, we appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. And for our podcast listeners too, if you want, go check out the YouTube, go check out our Facebook, any of that. They've got the links to all of it. We've got a gaming channel up now. So there's a lot of things that we're doing. Go check it out. If you've just been listening on the pod and you want to watch, go check it out. We're on YouTube, super easy to find. Our links are up here. And again, we appreciate you guys. Continue listening, share, subscribe, all the great things that Trevor said as well. So thank you guys. Have a great night. Y'all take care.
Later.